Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Ch.15 Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are in the 14th chapter, the Yoga of the Three Gunas. What verse are we on?
25 today.
25? How many verses
Yes.
are there in the whole chapter? Does anyone know?
Okay.
It's a short
27.
one. 27. We're almost done. All right. So, Vinayak, will you help us out?
Manapmano manyotstulyatstulyo mitraripaksho sarvarambha parityagi gunatitah sa uchyate. The same in honor and dishonor, the same to friend and foe, abandoning all undertakings, he's said to have crossed beyond the gunas.
Yes. So, the idea here is to get out of the mind. Swami used to thunder, "Shut up and get out." People would tremble. It's not what he meant. Didn't mean get up and leave the satsang. Be ever beyond the gunas and understand how mechanical the mind's responses are. When the situation is conducive, because of past associations, the mind experiences happiness. When the situation is non-conducive, the mind is unhappy. There's nothing inherently good or bad about the world. That is my sankalpa, my projection upon it. So we want to practice this samadrishta, this equality of vision, keeping the mind tuned up. All the sensory experiences just pass through. And when the mind reacts this way, you just watch it. And when the mind reacts that way, you just watch it. We don't get involved in believing all these stories of the Lord. This turns the volume level down. activity. Way, way down. So let everything pass through. We quit believing the mind. It's the mind itself that quits believing itself. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
Mama cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samatityay anabhram brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And he, serving me with unswerving devotion and crossing beyond the gunas, is fit to become Brahman.
Yes. So again, it's not that we were this miserable creature and we become Brahman. It isn't that we are deified. Language falls short. We realize I've always been Brahman. When you are the dreamer and you dream that you're drowning in the ocean, you wake up. Does the dreamer become the waker? Well, actually, the waker sees the whole dream was an illusion. At the moment of realization, we see the fundamental unreality of a personal sense of self. Vedanta thunders the doctrine of ajati. Self is never born. This jiva bhavana, this feeling that I'm a person, is like a very long, very vivid dream. So you want to be woke. That's the sense of it. Next one.
Brahmano hi pratishthamamritsyavyasya cha shasvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. For I am the abode of Brahman, the immortal and the immutable, of everlasting dharma and of absolute bliss.
Yes. So Krishna is another name for Brahman, another name for yourself. Which is bliss absolute, the fountainhead, the wellspring of all happiness. I love the picture that I have here of Hanuman and Ram. Hanuman's the mind. Where does it find peace and satisfaction when it's yoked to the infinite? We realize it's not out there. It's myself. Is there one more? Or are we done?
Now it's just the Upanishad at the end.
Okay.
Om Tat Sadati Shri Bhagwad Gita Su Upanishitsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Gunatraya Vibhayogo Nama Chaturdasho Dhyayah. Thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagwad Gita, in the science of the eternal, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 14th discourse ends, entitled The Yoga of Gunas.
All right. So let's start the next one.
Shri Bhagwan Uvacha.
What's the title of this one?
The Supreme Spirit.
Yes.
Urdhva Mula Madha Shakhamas Masvatham Prahayurya Vyayam Chandamasi Yasya Parnani Yastam Vedasi Devavita. The Blessed Lord said, they speak of the indestructible Ashwatha tree as having its roots above and branches below, whose leaves are the Vedas. He who knows it is alone a Veda knower.
Yes. So this is one of the most famous allegorical images in Gita. Also appears in Katha Upanishad, the Ashwatha tree, whose roots are above and branches below. It's not really geographically located that way. In most sacred traditions, we think of the higher as being higher and the lower as being lower. So the tree of life has its roots in the infinite. That's the meaning of the Ashwatha tree. And the leaves are the Vedas. So the Vedas were not written in book form originally. I forget what they were written on, not papyrus. I don't know. Some sort of fibrous material. But the idea here is the Vedas have all of worldly knowledge. The Vedas are divided essentially into two sections: Karma Kanda, the action portion, the ritual portion; Jnana Kanda, the knowledge portion, the Upanishads. So the Vedas give us knowledge of both. I was talking with a person yesterday, in fact, and this brahmachari was saying to a person, well, what you're doing is adharmic. What the scriptures say is you should do blah, blah, blah. We have to be very careful about this. Fundamentalism in general is a fear response. Now listen very carefully. We have suggestions as far as our behavior in the Vedas, but they are located in a cultural and a historical context, which is not necessarily the cultural and historical context we're in now. So we've got to be very careful about literalism. My viewpoint is they are suggestions. But there's another place that Veda is written. What do we call the whole body of literature of the Vedas? Anybody remember what it's called? Shruti. What does Shruti mean?
To hear.
What's heard? So ultimately, when you have a quiet mind and you listen to what the prophet Isaiah called the still small voice. This is where Veda is written for you. And it's more important that you have authenticity and personal integrity than you follow some external rule. So in this discussion, there was a young woman who went to this particular brahmachari, and she was getting in touch with the fact that she was attracted sexually to women. And she didn't know what to do with it, whether or not she should act on those impulses. This fellow, he's well trained, but he's very young. And he says, oh, that's adharmic. Your choices are this: get married and suppress these desires, or become an ascetic, become a swamini. I think that's not good advice. If she were to get married and suppress those inclinations, she's not being very true to her husband, And religious institutions are filled with people. It's not that they want God, they're running away from some issue in life. So this is the 21st century in the United States. Not sure that young fellow's advice to her is the best. Now, she'll have to work that out for herself. But we have to be very careful, and it's not just the Vedas. We have the same problem in Christianity, in Judaism, in Islam. People look to these scriptures, and fundamentalism is a fear response. I need to be certain. I can't handle mystery and things that aren't necessarily concretely laid out. And that's scary for some people. But I tell you, can't really proceed in the spiritual path by being a follower of rules. A deeper understanding. Can a person be a householder, have a job, and attain self-realization? Some people would say, oh no, you have to take sannyas. I don't think that's true. You do need to renounce all your attachments. So we always have to look for what are the implied meanings. What's the truth principle that's behind some of these behavioral things? This is a very important point. Any thoughts on this? So when we say Veda, the root is vid, knowledge. Yes, for devout Hindus, all of the things that have to do with life are laid out in Scripture. But always we want to look for the implied meaning. What are the truth principles behind it? Understanding that even the Vedas are written in a historical and cultural context. Any thoughts on this before we go on? I know in Hamlet, this is put in the mouth of Polonius, and it's supposed to be a platitude, but it's incredibly true. And this above all, to thine own self be true. As the night follows the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. All right, next verse.
Adhashchorvadham prastastasya shakha guna pravriddha vishay pravalaha adhascha mulanyus santatani karmanu buddhini manushya loke. Below and above are spread its branches, nourished by the gunas. Sense objects are its buds, and below in the world of men stretch forth the roots originating in action.
Yes. So the roots are above, the things that below, and now he's changing where they are. So here we have the buds are the gunas, the sense objects, qualities of mind, the fruits are going to be there. And it is our actions that cause everything for our world to come about. So, what do we mean by this? In the tradition, we have the term vasana. It's not a term we get in Gita. It's used in the tradition later, but we might as well talk about it. The root is vasati, which has two meanings. It can mean to linger or to dwell overnight. Is there a word similar to it in Hindi? It can also mean a fragrance. So like if someone is wearing a cologne, you walk into a room, you go, oh, Soundarya was here. I can smell the fragrance that she got in India. So what happens is when we perform an action egoistically in the world, what does that mean? It means I, the individual, am doing the action. And when I get what I want, desire and object of desire become one, I have what's called chintya. Chintya means worry in Hindi. In Sanskrit, it means after the fact reflection on the event. So chintya can be about a positive thing or a negative thing. But it's after the fact. Oh, that was such great ice cream. Oh, that was such terrible stuff. I'll never do that again. It's simplified, but we think about it that way, and then that leaves an impression in the unconscious. A vasana. Vasana is a subset of sanskara. Sanskara just means impression. They are not bad. So, for example, if you have children, you want to, give them good, positive spiritual sanskaras first 5 years. Good. But something is simple. Do you know that this is a table? Yes? No?
Yes.
The fact that you know it's a table is that when you were a child, you learned what a table was. A table is different than a chair. A table is different than a lamp. That's a sanskara. That's an impression. It's not problematic. It's not going to cause you to suffer. But if it's my table, or it's Jim's table, you better not destroy it. Einus and minus, stuff that's yours and not mine. Sangraha, we have attachment. That leaves a special kind of impression called a vasana. Now, a vasana has two powers: avarana shakti and vikshepa shakti. Avarana shakti or avritti shakti means veiling power. When my mind is under the influence of vasana, it's characterized by the non-apprehension of my self-nature. Second power, vikshepa shakti, the root is Ch.15, which means to throw a spear or hurl a spear. It means the mind goes out. And it basically only projects three things. I think I'm a person. And I have some goal that I'm convinced is going to make it better. That goal only takes one of two forms. I either need to fix the world or I need to fix me. And the third element is struggle, kartavya. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. I must go to point A in order to be happy. That construct is called the mind. It's called samsara. It's called the karma chakra. It's called my personal life. It is the essence of my suffering. And the root of it is the avarana shakti of the vasana. The vasana is the result of yesterday's indiscriminate revelry with the objects of the senses. Where it comes from. This is why here he says that action is the root, the mula. That's what sows the issue. Now, Shankara has a beautiful metaphor. He says these vasanas are like a silkworm spinning its cocoon. You have one vasana. Not a big deal. Do a little bit of tapas, you can eat. But if you don't, and you just leave it, you have another egoistic action, and then there's a second vasana, and then a third, and then after lifetimes, millions of. And then the mind gets cocooned, just like the silkworm. One indiscriminate, unconscious experience at a time. And the end result is, I feel miserable. I'm bound. I need to be realized because my life sucks. Or we may not even get that far. We may think, what's wrong is I don't have the right house, the right car, the right partner, the right job. I'm living in the wrong country. It's the politics. It's the economy. All of that is rooted in ignorance. And the cause of it is vasana. All of yoga are various techniques for the exhaustion and the annihilation of vasana. That's all that need be done. Any thoughts on this before we go on? Now, chapters 3, 4, and 5, Karma Yoga, teach us how to act according to our vasanas because we've got enormous vasana pressure. What can restraint do? But doing it in a way where we exhaust vasana without creating new ones. But after we've been doing this work for a while, any time we can tune up the mind, get beyond the moon. Notice the no thingness of the sound. Who hears the traffic? If you get the sense that there's no person there, it's just being heard, there's a space of awareness that burns up millions of vasanas. It's the most powerful method. Why? What's the first power of a vasana? Veiling power, non-apprehension of my self-nature. When I apprehend my self-nature, that moment, the mind is free from vasana. So, here in this verse, when Krishna talks about the root of it all is action, what's implied is the actions produce results. So, who of us has gotten up in the morning and you think, oh, I really should meditate, and you sit down and now what I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I've got this project going on, and what about it? I'm just not into it today. Who's had that feeling? What you experienced was vasana pressure. First comes the ignorance. Then comes this low level agitation. I feel squirmy. And it impels me into action. I act in the world in an egoistic way, which then sows more vasana, and the rat race continues. So, what we want to realize, it is like the person who goes to a party on Friday night and drinks cheap champagne and then wakes up Saturday morning with a headache. Oh, I must have a touch of the flu. I'll take a couple Excedrin and maybe I'll have a Bloody Mary. Not realizing what the problem is. You got a hangover. So agitation, discontent, desire is a spiritual hangover. It's what happens to my mind as the result of yesterday's, I mean that metaphorically, it goes back a long time, indiscriminate revelry with the objects of the senses. Very, very important principle. Anybody in Zoom land have any questions about this?
No, Jim.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying no. Thanks.
All right, next verse.
Is that Shweta?
Hari Om Shveta.
Hari Om, Jim.
Shweta, I'm having a hard time chanting. This is really hard to read.
Do you want to take over?
Oh, sure. Let me just find the verse in my book. One moment.
We're in chapter 15. I think we're on
Verse 3.
verse 3, shloka 3.
Just give me a moment to find the verse.
I didn't know Shweta was there. So.
She wasn't there at the beginning. She came in during meditation, I think.
Yeah, okay. 1 second. Narupam. This one, right, Vinayak?
Correct.
Narupam syeha tathopalbhyate nanto cha nanto na chadin cha sampratishtha ashwathamena suvirudhamula masangasastrena dridhena chitva. Its form is not perceived here as such, neither its end, nor its origin, nor its foundation, nor its resting place. Having cut asunder this firm-rooted Ashwatha tree with the strong axe of non-attachment.
So, this, of course, is a metaphor. We're not going to go to some garden in Jaipur and find the tree. It's not the Garden of Eden somewhere in the Middle East. It is a metaphor. And no one sees it. 99.99999% of all the people in the world do not understand what's going on. They all think, I'm unhappy. Why am I unhappy? I'm not getting what I want. I'm not getting rid of the stuff I don't like. What should I do about it? Get what I want, beat up the people who get in my way. I want to get rid of what I don't like, punch them. More, better, different. More, better, different. Are you an addict? Yes, I'm a more fiend. I just want more. That's the world. And God bless the United States of America. But it is our religion, our Bhagwad, and we spread it around the world. Swamiji used to talk about how the United States may have a higher standard of living, but does it have a higher standard of life? Can't tell you how many young people I talk to. They're so smart. And especially since the downturn of 2008, they're salaried and they are compelled to work 60 hours a week in the corporate structure if they want to get ahead. We've lost the 40-hour work week. Stress, stress, stress. Why? So I can get stuff. Cash and prizes. The one with the most stuff wins. When the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. That's America. And what yoga says, how's that working out for you? So you hit 45 and you divorce your wife and buy a red sports car. Maybe that'll work. Midlife crisis. And here what Gita is saying, stop a minute and look. This Ashwatha tree, tree of life, no one sees it. No one understands what's going on. So Krishna says you can stop the rat race. This isn't in Gita. This is the teaching of the Buddha now. But it's so clear. This is the Four Noble Truths of the Buddha. It is beautiful Vedanta. It's the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. This was his first teaching. Noble truth number one, dukkha satya. Life, the way most people live, is suffering. What's the cause of suffering? Samudaya satya. Samudaya means what causes it to arise. Kama, craving. Dvesha, aversion. Sangraha, attachment. I have what I want, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. Bhaya, fear. What does it feel like to want something you don't have? It sucks. Let's put physical pain on the shelf. Vast majority of us do not suffer because we have a broken ankle. We suffer because of what's going on in our minds. And it's craving. It hurts to want stuff. Nirodha Satya, I think that's how they say the third noble truth. I have to look it up again, the Sanskrit. How do you get free from suffering? We experience freedom from suffering in two conditions. All of this is clearly set forward in the teaching on the Anandamaya Kosha. When we satisfy a desire momentarily, the craving goes away. I got what I wanted. But it's always so temporary. The situation changes, our minds change. And it's at the cost of so much effort. I like to say 95 cents worth of work for a nickel's worth of pleasure. It's just crappy economy. The other place where we experience this, deep sleep. Everybody loves a deep sleep. The more problems you have, the more you love deep sleep. Why? Because this Vikshepa Shakti of the mind is gone. It's all folded up into pure ignorance. So you wake up in the morning, and, oh, I slept so well. I just want to lie here. You punch your pillow and roll over. Then all of a sudden, the mind comes back. Oh, I've got this meeting at 9:00 this morning, and I've got to prepare for it. And I've got to go do this report. Oh, I had a fight with my significant other, and I got to clean that up. The dog is sick. You know that feeling? Where does your bliss go? It's like the morning fog in San Francisco when the sun comes up. It just goes, what's happened? My craving mind has come back. And there went my bliss. So you must have an extroverted mind in order to be unhappy. Every night we prove that you don't need the extroverted mind in order to be blissful. Well, is deep sleep the highest state then? Should I get a frontal lobotomy or a bottle in front of me? No, because it's always temporary. The craving mind returns, usually stronger than ever. So then the Buddha said, can we be permanently free from the tyranny of an addictive relationship with the world? That was Marga Satya, the truth of the path. He called it the Eightfold Path. We would call it sadhana. So here in this shloka, Krishna is saying, strike at the root of it all. Going back to our understanding of asana, two powers, Parana Shakti, Vikshepa Shakti Cha. Veiling power, projecting power. Here Krishna is saying, deal with the veiling power. My problem is, I do not know who I am, and I don't know what this world is. First, we get what's called paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge, from the scripture, from the teacher. But then, abhyasa vairagyacha, my own practice and an intense spirit of renunciation. Renunciation is only effective if it's rooted in insight. Can't do it out of a moral position. Doesn't work. When I begin to see that it's my craving itself, my control issues, my desire for attention, my judgment of other people. It shows up in so many different ways. When I see that's the problem, then rather than playing whack-a-mole with the world, which is what most of us do, start working on my own attachments, my own identifications, my own expectations. So again, in Yoga Vasishtha, we have this wonderful maxim. Why try to cover the world in leather when you can wear shoes? For the yogi who's given up this compulsive longing, who's seen the pain of the tyranny of kama, usually translated as desire. I don't think that's a strong enough word. I prefer craving. Because preferences, you'll always have preferences, and they're not problematic if you let them go. Here, Krishna says, this Ashwatha tree, whose root is in action. Why? Because the fruits of ignorant action is vasana. One of my favorite verses in Shankara's Vivekachudamani. So many of you have heard me say this 1,000 times. It's 267. Even after realization of the truth, meaning I've had some taste of this, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth. Here, it doesn't mean I come back as a lizard. It means I re-identify. The Avarana Shakti has come down. I forget that I am Brahman. Then the Vikshepa Shakti, all of a sudden, Jim, and life starts to get serious again. Shankara says this needs to be conscientiously rooted out through steady and continuous identification with the self. If I feel like a person, I'm deluded, stop. Drop it. If I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha, the affliction, which is always attachment, expectation, identification, some form of that. Let it go. Drop it. Then he ends that verse by saying it is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. Same idea as Krishna is saying here. Strike at the root, the mula of the Ashwatha tree. Break the chain. I'm impelled by desire because of past actions, vasana. I am ignorantly impelled in trying to get what I want. Then when desire is fulfilled or not, I have the chintya, the rumination over the past. I'm going to do that again. I'll never do that again. I think about it. I fantasize about it. That sows the vasana and starts the whole insane cycle over. There is no more fruitful meditation than a real understanding of this. It amazes me because I have lots and lots of friends who consider themselves Buddhist practitioners. And I will frequently say, well, what's your understanding of the Four Noble Truths? What are those? Oh, I'm not into those.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. And the whole rest of the path makes no sense if you don't understand what is the cause of my suffering. Once I see what the cause is, then I can develop the desire to be free from my desires. Isn't that another desire, Jim? Yeah, but it's a desire that burns up the other ones. And you let go of that one too. You become a mumukshu, seeker after liberation. You become a jinyasu, seeker after real wisdom. All right, really important stuff tonight. Next verse.
ततः पदं तात परिमार्गिताव्यां यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूय तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रसृता पुराणी.
Oh,
Then,
you got the double meter. Great.
yeah,
The
then
English,
that, sorry.
the English, please.
Then that goal should be sought after, where having gone, none returns again. I seek refuge in that primeval Purusha from which streamed forth from time immemorial all activity or energy.
Yes. So, what is the difference between a bhogi and a yogi? Both want happiness, want fulfillment, want meaning, want purpose. A bhogi practices bhoga with the unexamined paradigm. I'm unhappy, and the way to be happy is to satisfy as many desires as possible. Seems reasonable. The end result is more desire. Kama, karma, krodha, the spiritual KKK. Craving, action, anger. That's the destiny of the bhogi. Disappointment. A yogi practices yoga. She also wants to be happy, but she begins to engage in a way of life that reduces the number of desires entertained. Again, this is not done as some willful act. Oh, look at the martyr I am. I just don't do anything and I never have any fun. Doesn't mean that. Now, you both are reasonably young. You're a little bit younger. Did you ever hang out in the clubs when you were younger?
A couple times.
Just a couple times?
Usually more than a couple.
Did you ever have people say, hey, we're doing cocaine in the bathroom. You want to do a line of cocaine?
Did not have that happen to me.
Did you ever have that happen to you as a youngster?
No.
Oh, you guys are just lightweights.
Yeah.
But you know, many people have that sort of thing happen to them in college as young people. And if you're intelligent, you may think, no, I don't want to go down that road. A couple beers tonight is plenty. Why? You think it through. No, that's not where I want to go. I know these things are addictive. I know that you can trash your life, maybe cut with fentanyl. No, I just don't want to go down that path. Do you see what I mean by insight? It's not, oh, I'm a goody goody. I'm straight edge. I don't do that stuff. It's different. Different. So the yogi desires happiness, but she understands there's an ancient teaching that suggests that this is a way where you can find real fulfillment and purpose in life, even before self-realization. Krishna has said even a little of this knowledge frees us from great fear. That the life of the bhogi, the hedonist, one who becomes tyrannized by their desires, it's a miserable way to live. So, the Shruti says this is an intelligent way to go. The great saints and sages, Ramana Maharshi, Ramakrishna, Swamiji, have said, it works. Think it through. Real spirituality is profound common sense. And then experiment with this in the laboratory of your own mind and your own experience. See whether or not it's true. Now, we got introduced to a term here, Purusha. Purusha is a very, very old term. In one of the oldest sections of the oldest Veda, the Rig Veda, we have the Purusha Sutkam, the hymn to the divine person. That's basically what Purusha means. And we're going to have Krishna refer to himself as Purushottama, Uttama Purusha. The ISKCON people say the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's how they translate it. I would translate it as the ultimate essence of personness. Are you a person? I am. What makes you really a person? It's because you are a conscious, sentient being. And I like to say, well, try the amputation meditation. If your hands are cut off, are you still you? Still a person. What if you were quadriplegic and paralyzed? Would you still be a person? Yeah. What if you were blind? Would you you still be a person? Yeah, I said be me. What is it that's essentially you? Fine. Oh, Purushottama is Krishna, is Brahman, is Paramatma, Supreme Self itself. Now, Krishna, or rather Vyasa, our poet, borrows this term from the Sankhya's. In the Sankhya philosophy, Purusha means an individual lump of consciousness that gets all tangled up with Prakriti, matter. And their idea of yoga is we've got to disentangle the individual Purusha from all that Prakriti. And then there's a super Purusha called Ishvara. That is not Vedanta. Sometimes the word Purusha is used to mean the ego sense. But here, you need to understand that it means ultimate reality, great spirit, yourself, Paramatma, Brahman, Chidakash, vast empty space of awareness. Okay, one more.
निर्माण मोहा जित संग दोषा अध्यात्म नित्या विनिवृत्त कामः द्वन्द्वैर्मुक्तः सुख दुःख संज्ञे गर्च्छन्त मूढ़ा पदं व्ययं तत्. Free from pride and delusion, victorious over the evil of attachment, dwelling constantly in the self, their desires having completely retired, freed from the pairs of opposites such as pleasure and pain, the undeluded reach the goal eternal.
So here, Krishna sets forward in a sketch what are the things we need to do in order to cross over samsara. So let's take it idea by idea. What's the first one, Shweta?
Free from pride and delusion.
Yes. So the idea here is pride. Here is just another metaphor for I am an individual and I need to protect, defend, explain, justify. How dare you treat me like that? Don't you know who I am? I'm a legend in my own mind. All has to go. Now, pride also takes the form of low self-esteem. Nobody knows how much I've suffered. I not only have a terrible family of origin, but I've had a terrible family of origin for lifetimes. I've been abused. I've been traumatized. I'm not saying these things didn't happen. But if we are attached to the story, identified with the story, that's pride. Or I'm of a particular population, a class that's been the victim of prejudice. I see everything through that lens. It's because I'm a woman, that's why they're treating me this way. It's because I'm a person of color, that's why they're treating me this way. And it may be true, but we have to let go of all those stories and let go of the ignorance. Again, back to the power of Avasana, Varana Shakti, Vikshepa Shakti. These first two ideas, he just simply reversed them. He talked about the Vikshepa Shakti first, some personal sense of self, and then its cause, ignorance. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not my ideas, I'm not that karta, that agent. Koham, who am I? Chidananda Rupaham, I'm of the form of bliss consciousness. Satchidananda Rupaham, existence, consciousness, and bliss. Asangoham, I'm totally. Okay, we'll have to finish this verse next week. It's very, very rich, and it's already 8 o'clock, so we'll have to end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.